Hello folks and welcome to episode 1 of Renegade Radio, the show for all things RCW, and I suck at promoting shit. It's basically, I was toying with the idea of a podcast, and I looked around on the web, on the tinterwebs, checked Google and shit, and on the podcast stuff, I don't really want to pay to do this, because I'll pay rent and money towards my child and stuff, which I don't mind, I'll say that now. But yeah, rent, and I pay for my prescriptions, because I'm asthmatic. I pay to breathe, basically. So I don't really want to be paying to talk either. So yeah, I'm just going to do it like this. I will record audio on YouTube, and maybe put a few pictures out, just, to tart it up a bit more. This is my first one. It's my first go at this. Regarding RCW, it's my first go at it alone because I did a Transformers one and I had a friend. This one, because I will cover RCW in all its, I'd say, glory, but I'm not gonna. This one is how I came to this point. It's, we all start somewhere, and this is, my experiences as a gamer, specifically a wrestling gamer. I won't say a WWE gamer because it does cover WCW and ECW as well, and TNA. But yeah, this is basically how I got to the point where I am now. I'm not glorifying my position with RCW or anything, because YouTube hits are low. The same people that watch my TV episodes might be the only ones watching this. But I've got, I think they call it a niche crowd. Yeah, I've got a local fan base. I've got friends that like it, and my son likes it and stuff like that, and that's enough for me. I'm not one of these that's going to haul myself out and aim for 1,000 subscribers and 1 million views and shit, because that just isn't me. I do it because I like it. Being able to show people what I do is just a bonus. If you're familiar with my Breaking Game Fave video logs, this will probably be a lot like that in some aspects. I will cover pay-per-views, I will review pay-per-views and preview them that I do. Only it's going to be audio, no visual and shit. You ain't got to see my mug in front of a camera. But this is basically how it all began. And it was the year 2000, and I'd been a wrestling fan as a child, and it's funny though, because when it started going more edgier within the Attitude Era, the Monday Night Wars back in the mid-90s, that was when I started going off it. I grew up failing to realise that wrestling was growing up as well, and it was the year 2000 when I first started getting into it again properly. I basically missed the whole of the Attitude Era. I've gone back and seen stuff. I played WWE 13, I've got DVDs and, all that bollocks. So I know what went on then. It was my brother that got me back into it, because he'd just gotten into it. And now he's not into it. It's a weird little thing, that. But yeah, it was year 2000. He was watching it around his dad's, had Sky TV and all that. It was on Channel 4 then as well. We had Sunday Night Heat and a few pay-per-views. I remember Vengeance 2001 being on Channel 4. He had a PS1, and he had SmackDown 2. And so we'd play on it, it'd get me to play it with him. And it got me back into it, somewhat. It started that journey back, and I was playing, that was Create a Wrestler and stuff, and I wasn't very good at that point. I was shit, because it was my first time playing a wrestling game, and it just all looked so alien to me. Barely recognised anybody on there except The Undertaker, and it was like fucking Stone Cold, and I'm like, in WCW, and that's how bad it was. No, I knew he'd left, actually. It was when I watched him on WWE, and I was like, I thought he was in WCW, but I digest. yeah, one of the things that was on there was create a wrestler. I actually remember playing a match, and I was the Undertaker, and I did shit, but I blamed it on the computer because I was like 16 years old at the time, and I was like, oh, his pants, it's not the Undertaker, his underpants. And actually went in, because create a wrestler mode on SmackDown 2, you could create from scratch, or you could use existing body parts and stuff. It was like Superstar heads, but with the whole thing. So I used the Undertaker's head, and I used the Undertaker's top, and then I used the thong body. That was underpants. They even had created a taunt, and I created the pants dance. We will say no more. My first character on SmackDown 2 Know Your Role was one that I barely acknowledge. Shirt and slacks, because I wore a lot of that at that point for some reason. And no, short hair. I've got short hair again now. But yeah, shirt and slacks. Part of the corporation had Shawn Michaels' moveset. So you look at Desirous in RCW and all that crap, and yeah, just remember, my first finisher was Sweet Chin Music. But yeah, that was pretty much that, and I was just called Mike Taylor, because that's my name, you know. And then it just became, I got a PS1 of my own, and he got a PS2 when that came out. And he got SmackDown Just Bring It, and, you know, I was more eager to play this shit now. So I played Just Bring It, and I created a character on there, and it had call names and commentary. It sucked, but it was there. And so I created my guy, and I based him on the American Badass Undertaker. I like bandana and the motorcycle entrance and rolling and all that shit. Because the Undertaker's my favourite. And Kane, followed by Kane, close second. A lot of this early talk will be about a character that was a hybridization of both. But I'll get to that. I'm actually getting to it now, I'm starting off. There was call names, and they obviously didn't have Mike Taylor on there. But they had this neat little name that I liked called Hell's Guardian. And yeah, that is the name I ran with for up until SmackDown vs. Raw 2011. I used that name for 10 years on my core, my created wrestler. And that's not to say I've only been using Desirous for that last 4 years, I've used that longer. But yeah, Hell's Guardian, that was my original name. And so I went back onto SmackDown 2, because I had my brother's copy of SmackDown 2 while he was playing Just Bring It. I was slumming it on the PS1. And I rebooted my character, Hell's Guardian, with, you know, the Undertaker moves, the last ride finisher, and the entrance and shit. And that's sort of how it stayed for a while. Eventually I got a PS2 of my own, and I moved out, I was living on my own, I got a PS2 of my own, and I was able to get Just Bring It and do my own Hell's Guardian profile on Just Bring It, which, you know, went okay. I think I won the WWE title on there. But that came later. The first game I got for the PS2, wrestling-wise, when I had my own PS2, was SmackDown Here Comes the Pain. And that is, to this day, one of the best wrestling games that's ever been. And it was there that I really fleshed out the Hell's Guardian thing. And bear in mind, at this point, I was late teens. And as you are when you're a teenager, on these games, you absolutely have to rule your world. And I was no different, unless I was the only one that absolutely had to rule my own world, then I was completely different. But, you know, Hell's Guardian was the focal point of my gaming experience. I made creations of other people, my brother and my friends and that, and a lot of those carry over into today. But back then, it was, it was my game, it was my world, my character. If I wanted to be champion, I'd be champion. But it didn't really end at Here Comes the Pain. I wanted to dominate I wanted to rule every game. So I bought Just Bring It. I bought SmackDown 1 thinking I could do Hell's Guardian and that, and it didn't work. And I bought Attitude, WWF Attitude and WWF Warzone, and I won the titles on there. I won the title on Shut Your Mouth. A bunch of titles on Shut Your Mouth. A bunch of titles on Here Comes the Pain. And yes, Hell's Guardian was, in my world, the man. The original character concept for Hell's Guardian, because he wore black with that, the chest armor thing, and he had like a long robe and a mask. The mask that's got like the steel plate at the top and underneath the eyes, and it had like slits for the mouthpiece. It's one that you could do with long hair. Now you can't. It's a hood, and no matter what hair you've got, the hair goes away. And that's one of the reasons why I kind of dropped the character. It's a lot easier to go with Desirous. But yeah, so I was forging my own legacy in the world of my own PlayStation 2 gaming universe that went no further than my room. But just back in the day, this was before I didn't do capturing or anything of this. I don't think anyone could capture it back then. But it got crazier, and I actually started to like flesh this out properly and think about it and really piece something together. It got stupid the title range was like ridiculous. But think about all the game modes there are and stuff like that. I'll get to that in a bit. But I actually got to a point where I wanted to start somewhere. Here Comes the Pain wasn't where it started. As a fan or as a gamer. I wanted to start my guy, and I wanted to establish him. And I wanted to conquer everything, basically. I went out and bought WCW Mayhem on the PlayStation 1. And ECW Hardcore Revolution, I believe it is. Which was made by Acclaim, who did WWF Attitude. This was essentially ECW Attitude. Same taunts and stuff, just ECW characters. And so it began. I started my career in 1996, or 97, on Warzone. And then I left during the Attitude game. I left WWF, and I even had a reason. Backstage fallout with JBL, or Bradshaw back then. And I went to WCW, where I won their titles. And I was I've been WWF champion, and I was WCW champion. And then after a year of that, getting sick of Russo's bullshit. And that, because, I was playing it from a future perspective, if you will. I was playing this after, WCW and ECW had been bought by WWE. It was WWE at the time. I'd gone back and done all this, knowing what I could do in the past. Yeah, so basically, I had enough of Russo's bullshit and left WCW and went to ECW, where I won the Living Dangerously tournament and the Hardcore Revolution. No, that's the game. The Acclaim title, the TV title, and the World title. I won all three major world titles in those games, in those companies. I didn't win the WWE CW title. And this was it. This was fucking... You could call it an ego thing, but remember I was a late teen. I didn't have much of a social life, so this was my thing. However, all that built up, and by the time Here Comes the Pain rolled around, I was playing. I think I was WWE champion for about 4 years, 4 successive season modes on Here Comes the Pain. And at that point, I'd beaten Ric Flair's title reigns. I think I ended up, by the time I stopped doing this WWE career mode thing, I'd amassed like 64 world titles. And even then I thought that was a bit much, I'll half it. That's 32 still, that's stupid. 22 Intercontinental title reigns, 23 tag title. 7 Royal Rumbles, I think. It was just... It got crazy, and it got a bit ridiculous. And yeah, I've been building this thing. I've been creating wrestlers of my friends and family and stuff. I was thinking, why not build a federation around that? I won't be the star, I'll be a star, but I won't be the star. And this all came about. This was a fucking joke to begin with. Because me and my mates were called SmackDown, Spankdown. Stupid names for pay-per-views. And we were like, oh, let's watch Backsplash. Oh, Bug Splash. No, Backlash. I think I said Backsplash at first, didn't I? But yeah. And so began this whole Spankdown thing where on Here Comes the Pain there was no Creator Championship, there was no Creator pay-per-view. So basically did it in the SmackDown arena and exhibition matches. And what I did was I went into the Creator Wrestling mode, and for the championships, those fucking girdle things that go around your waist or whatever they are, I used them for championship belts and just put designs on them and stuff. And then that's how it all came about. I had my own little Spankdown roster, which kind of, I'll say it now, it got more serious by the time SmackDown vs. Raw came out, because of the possibilities and stuff. And I worked at Fantasy Island at the time, and so the main championship was the Fantasy Island Championship. And it all really took off more in SmackDown vs. Raw when that came out, because you had Creator pay-per-view and you had Creator Championship. They were stupid expensive, but you could create belts. And so I could do proper rosters. Over the course of this, I still did the WWE thing, that was still carrying on, and I was up to title 40 or something stupid by then. But the whole ECWA thing, because that's what I called it, East Coast Wrestling Alliance, because I lived on the East Coast of the UK. So the ECWA thing, it started out as just Spankdown, and then I added my own little brand extension thing, and I had 2 rosters, Spankdown and Whore is War. That later became Whorezone. Again, I was just pissing around at the time, but it kind of took on a life of its own in my head. But regardless of the stupid names like Bog Splash and Grudgement Day and SummerSlap, WrestleMania stayed the same. Majestic Mashing, No Escape, Unremorseful, Not Forgiven. But some of the names actually for my current pay-per-views, Christmas Carnage, that came from the ECWA days. That's probably the only one. I might use a couple for BWA. Anywho, it was, the stupid names aside, it was something that I really enjoyed doing, and I had all my own core and the cores of my family, my brother and old stepbrothers, but we'll not say anything more about that, and my friends from work, and that had this nice little thing with different rosters and different pay-per-views and different storylines. I wrote down on pieces of paper because I didn't have a computer. It was all pen and paper back then. None of the stuff you see on my Facebook or my YouTube. But it was fun. It was fun. And I found myself pushing other people. I'd grown to accept that there was more than just me in there. And there was all these other characters that I could utilise and explore and stuff. My own world became my own sandbox, if you will. There was just possibilities coming from all corners. And I had a blast doing it. SmackDown vs. Raw 2007, there were some problems with that because, you know, custom entrances, they had championship belts in custom entrances. You didn't have to use a preset champion entrance. But some of them were glitched and the belt wouldn't show up at certain points. But you had like 3 profiles, and you had like up to 6 profiles, I think. And I had 3 profiles. I had 4 actually. One for SmackDown, one for Warzone, one for ECW, because I just brought the ECW arenas and stuff in, so I had East Coast Wrestling, SmackDown and Warzone, and then one for the joint one, like for the Majestic Mashing, which was my Royal Rumble match. I could copy the wrestlers, because you could copy wrestlers back then to different profiles. It wasn't a case of rebuilding them, you could just copy it over and bish bash bosh, there you go. And so yeah, I'd do like the matches, and then for like the cross pay-per-views, WrestleMania, SummerSlam, Fight for Survival, that's another one. That is an RCW one now. And yeah, but those 4, Majestic Mashing, I used a separate profile, so I could copy the characters that are on the card onto that profile and do it that way without hurting anything else. And that was like those 3 games, because SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, they brought in better championships fit around cores then. They were atrocious on the first SmackDown vs. Raw. Also, championships were cheaper then on 2006. It was an all-out better game. You had like barroom brawls and parking lot brawls and finishers with the cars and driving cars into other cars and shit and dropping fucking big bombs on people or something. Maybe not that far, but that was just that was basically the ECWA stuff. And by the time 2007 rolled around, the SVR 2007, I actually created another company called WCWA, West Coast Wrestling Alliance. I didn't actually live on the West Coast, but that's what I did. Just to rival it, not really rival it, but it was because basically ECWA was only made up of people that I knew. They were cores based on actual people. I still had wrestlers, the cores that I'd made in the past that didn't really, that were basically completely fictional, couldn't go in the ECWA, so I created the WCWA that I could put those guys in and do that. And I never got around to it, but I had this crossover pay-per-view planned, East meets West. It was basically, you know, I think that was the name of a Ninja Turtles Next Mutation episode. That's probably where I got it from. But that was it, basically. And yeah, I never actually finished that off. That's still somewhere. I kept my PS2 for ages, hoping to continue it, but I never got around to it. And then SmackDown vs. Raw 2008 had none of that. No creator pay-per-view, no creator championship. No, sorry, tell a lie, it had creator championship, but no creator pay-per-view. It was around about this time, I was working at Butlins at this time, and Ben, you'll know where this is going. Still doing the WWE thing, the career thing, up to about fucking 50 titles, I don't know. I lost count. But I actually started doing this thing because, you know, working at Butlins, I made new friends, and subsequently I had a new roster at my disposal in my creative little mind that I could do a new Fed. bye-bye ECWA, hello BWA, Butlins Wrestling Association, or Alliance, I can't remember. This was 2008, the year my son was born, 2008. And I started doing this BWA thing. Played GM mode and put them all in the WWE part for the career thing, but mostly it was BWA. My mate Ben, my best mate from there, Ben, he was keen on it. I'd go and sit in his shed, well, his chalet, staff chalet, shed, and we'd do our pay-per-views and shit, and we'd like plan it, and it was more fun doing that than it was ECWA, because ECWA was a lot of fun, but it's just me for the most part. Some input from some people sometimes, but in terms of the BWA, we could actually plan it and bounce off each other, see what worked and what didn't. And that was actually when the Desirous character came into being. I created him. The Desirous name comes from Transformers Victory. There was a Decepticon Emperor of Destruction called Desirous, and I just took the S out and ran with it. The first S, because there's 2 S's in that. And we played this triple threat tornado tag team match, because you could do them back then. And tag team titles on the line, the BWA tag titles, and we lost. And I was pissed, and I was like, fuck this shit, I ain't being Guardian Prime anymore, because that was my BWA first character, Guardian Prime. Because it was more, I scaled them down to like more our own, because Hell's Guardian was a big 7-foot monster bastard, and Guardian Prime was like a little guy like me. Obviously that's not the case now. I'll go with monster bastard Desirous because it pulls it off better. But started off as Guardian Prime, and I was like, we lost this match, and we dominated the match, and then someone came in and stole the pin, and I was fucking raging, and I'm like, fuck this, I'm being Desirous. And that's how that started. And that was all good and well. I moved away, but we could still do it, and that. Then came SmackDown vs. Raw 2009, which took all of that out. No creator pay-per-view, no creator championship. I was left with nothing but the WWE career thing again. And that carried on through 2009, 2010, and 2011. I'll say no more about that, except to say I won a few more championships. As did other cores. But looking back, the way I kind of explain it is, I was exploring the storylines. There was one in Shut Your Mouth where you face Ric Flair, and he's like, oh, your next challenger is me, woo! And I want to know what happened if I lost, whether he'd take the title as the GM of Raw. So I let him win, and it kind of, the title got returned to me. So I classed that as another reign. There was one where I played as my brother, as a character of, I created my brother, played as him during season mode on Shut Your Mouth, and lost to myself. This little storyline thing where me and my brother were in a tag team, and I betrayed my brother, so I went in as the undisputed champion, and I lost, playing as my brother. That gave my character another title reign. That hasn't happened very often, but you think about it. You got your season mode, and then excuse me, with SmackDown vs. Raw 2006, you could defend titles in exhibition. You also had general manager mode. You had all these different modes where you could win all the same title multiple times in the same game, within the same half hour if you wanted to. Done season mode, title win, yay. GM mode, title win, yay. Exhibition mode, let's have a title match. That's how it all got to crazy fucking quantities of gold. wasn't helped by the 2009 to 2011 career mode either, where you just work yourself way up the ranks of every fucking division, even the cruiserweight division, no matter how much you weighed. So yeah, you know, Johnny Nitro and Joey Mercury had the belt hanging from the waist. I'd have a fucking skirt of belts, like a championship skirt, by the time you're done with career mode. But yeah, that was pretty much that career mode. Oh, I also created another character called Rage. That was Hell's Guardian's alter ego. Basically, in WCW, he was abducted by a woman named Sin and brainwashed. Rage was basically a red Hell's Guardian, and it got to a point where I wanted to use the character again, but didn't want to be Rage. So I kind of like did the tiger mask thing from Japan, where I brought in Rage 2 and Rage 3, and I think I had Rage 4 by the time 2011 rolled around, because I was doing an NXT thing then as well, just for a laugh. And obviously with 2011 then came Universe mode, so that added some more organisation to my WWE career. But yeah, that's about it as far. I haven't done a WWE career thing. I mean, I've won titles in exhibition and that, playing around with Bradley, my son. But apart from that, no, I don't really class them as title reigns anymore. And then with WWE 12 came a better universe mode and create an arena. And obviously that birthed Renegade Championship Wrestling. I'll talk more about that in another episode of this, because I think I've gone on for long enough. How long have I been talking? Near over half an hour. Now RCW, so yeah, Ben at this point had his own little fed called, it might have been KOW at that point, it was KOW originally, I think, and then it became the UWA, which is what it's known as now. And I was thinking, yeah, I'll do this fed thing, because I'd let him use my Desirous character in UWA. I was toying with the idea of creating my own fed when WWE 12 came out, which I eventually did. But it was one of those things where, you know, I wanted to do something different, so I didn't create a fresh Desirous. I basically had Ben end Desirous' UWA career, and then I put Desirous in RCW. He jumped ship, and we kept this whole thing. There's supposed to be a few feds running around within the same Federations of the World thing we got on Facebook. You got NGW from Wilf, UWA from Ben, NLW from, John, RCW from me. And there's some, like, you know, there's cross promotion and intertwining and all that shit. Hell, we even incorporated BWA into that as a nostalgic thing, which I'll get into more in another cast. Yeah, that is pretty much all I'm going to say for this, because it's nearly 35 minutes long. If you've liked this, yay. If you haven't, sorry. Give me pointers and shit, you know the drill. If you've listened to this, yay. But that about wraps it up. I have been Desirous Prime. This has been my first episode of Renegade Radio, and you shall hear me next time.